And welcome back to another episode of Real Estate Gets. Gordo, we are number six.
Number seven. Number seven, Trevor.
Lucky number 7. We are cruising. And you know what people have been telling me? Is that we should do a little intro outro because it sounds like we're actually providing some good value and people are really enjoying it. So we're going to start off. We're new to this. It's a little weird to ask, but if you've been enjoying it, and you've been liking what we've been saying and it's providing value, hit like, hit subscribe, follow us on Spotify.
Or share it with somebody.
If
you know somebody that's thinking about buying or might find the information interesting.
The information interesting just to, get the name out there.
Or somebody, if someone that can't sleep, you want to give them something they can listen to help them nod off.
All right, or maybe just keep them awake.
That's right. Little nightmares.
Yeah, the nightmares, exactly. And then this one, we're talking about location, which is a big topic. But before we get into that, how's your week going?
It's going well, thanks. Busy. Lots on the go. It's a challenging market, and so there's more to do. It's it's just a busy
time. Fun times in real estate. It's also fun times as a sports fan. We just went through Trade Center. The Leafs are absolutely dog poop. I'm not going to swear, but what is happening?
Who knows?
Free living. It looks like Berube's lost the room. We gave up a first in Fraser Minton, who was rookie of the month or something with Boston or the NHL, and we got Carlo back, and Lawton went for a third, and we gave a first. It's just like, oh.
I think there's going to be more action before the draft or at the draft. I think there's going to be. I'm guessing there's going to be changes with the coaching staff. We can't have another season like this.
We got to tank. Because we had the first round picks only top 5 protected.
That's right.
And in typical Buds fashion, we're going to be like 6 or 7 and have to give it away.
Well, it's not a good time. Not a good time to be a Leafs fan, but there's, as we say every single year, there's always next year.
There's always next year. Typical Toronto sports franchise.
That phrase started in 1968, by the way.
Why?
There's always next year because when the last time they won the cup, so it's 1968. They're saying, well, next year will be better. Yeah, but in '68 they didn't win the cup, so they're like, and there's always next year. And then
over my head, they're live on the podcast.
That's okay.
The location, or anything else you want to talk about before we jump in?
No, let's jump into it.
Okay, so we had the little crinkly paper last time.
Yeah, so that didn't work out well.
I think it showed up a little bit, so now we got it on the old phones here of our notes, right? Because we're that established now. We got pre-notes. So location, what it really means in real estate. So how do you want to give kind of like a high overview here of?
For sure. Yeah. I think, we talk about, what's a great location, but you really have to drill down to the street level, because you can start off by saying, well, where's a good location in Ontario? Well, GTA is great. Well, we're in the GTA. Well, Mississauga is a great location. Well, we're in Mississauga. There's tons of great neighborhoods. So you have to start to drill down, and when you're comfortable with the city, or you kind of feel like like the school district that you want to be in, then you have to really start looking at particular streets and areas and what's close by. So I think it's obviously the drill down effect.
There's like stigmas that are associated with certain things and elements that I think we're going to touch on today, that maybe in some cases, you have these really good neighborhoods, like we were talking about with Lauren Park, for instance. People associate train tracks and hydro towers and highways.
Lauren Park's
negative.
It's a great example.
That's one of the best neighborhoods, if not the best neighborhood in Mississauga.
And it's a great example because you're right. There's a train track runs through the middle of it. There's a hydro line that cuts through the middle of it on a diagonal, and at the north end, you've got the QEW. But still, some of the most expensive homes in Mississauga are in the area, and great schools.
And people never leave. There's not a lot of big.
That's right.
There's low turnover in there.
There's low turnover. A lot of families, and retired couples stay in the house that the kids grew up in rather than leaving because it's just such a great place to live.
Okay, so to start it off, then we've been doing this for quite some time, and you go around, and how do we? I like to start my search off with everybody being like location. So understanding where you want to be, because at the end of the day, you can renovate the home to however you want it. You can make it look like it is the best place that anyone's ever seen, but you cannot physically take that home and move it to where you need to
Correct.
be, right? So it's understanding people's wants and needs from that regard. And I think people have heard this before where you never want to buy the nicest house on the worst street.
Right. Well, because
what does that mean, Gord?
So, well, I guess first, to your first point, I always say look at the things you can change and the things you can't change. So if you buy a house and you don't like the purple walls, you can paint that. You can't make the house bigger, smaller, change it to it. I mean, you can, but it's astronomically expensive.
Yeah.
You can't move it to a different location on the street. So, that's an important kind of rule to think about. Look at what you can change and what you can't change. And then to your point about, having the best house on the street, the value of the house is derived by comparing it to what the neighborhood could achieve, I guess. And so if there's 5 houses on, or let's say 15 houses on a street, and one of them is amazing and the rest are sort of average, the value of the amazing house will be pulled down by the sort of average houses, and vice versa. If you have the worst house on a great street, that value is going to come up because the property value itself is going to be worth more.
And then gentrification gets thrown into that mix too, where maybe sometimes too it's this up and coming neighborhood, right? And understanding the location of everything. There's established neighborhoods and there's neighborhoods that maybe had these stigmas, right? They're not bad per se, but it's been taking longer for it to turn over.
Well, so it's cyclical, isn't it?
Well, and sometimes though there's these opportunities where you do have these established neighborhoods, but then eventually there's a point where only these, introductory products are left in maybe the stuff that hasn't had that gentrification yet, and you have these young families moving in. So now you have this opportunity where it's going to take some time. Like we were in the Junction. The Junction 30 years ago, murder, needles, what have you, and now the Junction Triangle is one of the best hubs from a transit standpoint, park standpoint, cafes. Toronto's hit or miss in general with schools, but yeah, schools.
There's great schools
for that specific park for sure. But it took time, right? And not to say everything is that aggressive on the scale of the needles and the murders and whatnot, but it shows you that at the same time too, maybe it is the nicest house on the street, and now that person is going to take a bit of a hit because you get to see that slowly things are changing, and now maybe down the road 20 years from now it ended up being potentially a good investment, right? Because of those things.
Yeah. And you talked about gentrification, so homes and neighborhoods go through a cycle. So when it's brand new, it's kind of in a state of rebuild or build, and then as the home depreciates, because a house is a depreciating asset, the property appreciates, but the house itself, if you build a house and don't do anything with it for 50 years, the value of the house eventually reverts to land value. So when a neighborhood starts to decline, it's because many of the homes are sort of reverting to land value, and then it becomes affordable and a chance for somebody to perhaps get in at a lower price, make some renovations or improvements, and it starts to build up again. And that's when that cycle starts to change. So I think it's important to understand, especially if you're looking in Toronto, Mississauga, there's less of that. I would say it's more stable, but
suburbia.
Suburbia. But where in the cycle is a particular neighborhood?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, because even say Lauren Park, but like Mineola West and Mineola East, right? You have these kind of, in Mineola East, you have these war style bungalows that are on these great, say maybe 50 by 150 foot lots. Mm-hmm. And now you're seeing that they're being torn down to build these 3,000 to 3,500 square foot David Small, nice, luxury homes. Mm-hmm. But to your point of like where
it's a state of rebuild,
exactly,
infill,
right? Mm-hmm. And that's an opportunity, especially on the example of buy the worst house on the nicest street. Getting into those locations and understanding where those locations are, you could find that diamond in the rough. And having a realtor that obviously knows these things, right, adds extra value too.
Right.
Okay, so some of the notes we've got are why location matters more than the house itself. We kind of pretty much know.
Well, I think, you always have to think when you purchase a house at some point in time, whether it's 5, 10, 15, 30 years from when you buy it, at some point you're going to be selling it. So in the back of your mind, you have to have some consideration is how easy is this house going to be sell when it's my time to sell it.
And I think this is a good, we'll bring it up now because obviously there's certain stigmas that are across the board.
Mhm.
Hydro lines,
Train
main
tracks,
streets, train tracks, highways,
corner lots.
corner lots. So we'll get into why those things maybe have depreciated the value. But at the same time, I think we need to remember that at the end of the day, it's understanding that these could affect resale value,
Mhm.
but also maybe that's the only thing that can get you in the door, right? Too, and that's not necessarily a bad thing because you are still investing in yourself. You're no longer paying somebody else's mortgage. You're paying yourself now. Are you going to be there for the next 20 years? And if these things don't necessarily bother you, maybe you don't have young kids, so that corner lot and lack of backyard isn't going to be a deal breaker because I'm going to be content for here 20 years. I don't really have to worry about people running out into the street, right?
Right.
And I'm going to get it at a discounted price that lets me get into the market. You want to kind of carry on with that?
I agree with you. And then, from the investment perspective, sure, when you go to sell it, you're going to maybe sell it at not, I wouldn't say at a decreased price, but the value won't be as high as another house that didn't have a stigma attached to it, but still it's going to rise with the market. So you'll still do well with your investment.
Okay, so let's talk hydro lines because this comes up a lot for me. I have a lot more, I'd say, upsizers that the millennial parent seems to be very invested in understanding everything that's on the internet in general, which I think is good and probably bad sometimes too, knowing too much.
Dr. Google?
Yeah. So hydro lines for me, at least with a lot of clients, is a no-no because there's supposedly studies that prove that if you're too close to a hydro line, there's maybe cancer implications or other implications on people's health. It's like with the windmills, right? Too, like supposedly that was giving people headaches. Meanwhile, I guess, the planning of where they're going to put these homes and neighborhoods take into account distance of those things. And we were talking about like in a house of a microwave, that being on and radiation and whatnot. So I feel like I have this conversation a lot, being like, if it's in, Applewood Acres or Lauren Park or certain neighborhoods that have these hydro lines running through, even like, Heaton Forest and Burlington and whatnot, it's like, this is too close, not good. You had a different perspective too, which was interesting that you said it's not even urban.
So I had a client that looked at and was a doctor and told me that there's no conclusive study that succinctly says hydro lines are bad for you. Now there's other things that go along with that. They're an eyesore. Perhaps you don't want the kids playing if the backs onto a hydro line. You don't want the kids playing back there because maybe they'll think about climbing. True. Don't do this, kids. But
touch.
You don't want to be near it. But there's a lot of great homes that do back onto them. So I think to your point, we have to really look at all of the things. Like what is the rest of the street like? What is the house like on the street?
The demographics. You want to be a young family. The whole street's young families.
That's right.
And the schools are top notch.
That's right. And so it might not matter as much. And for some people would look at it and say, and I actually sold a house last year that backed onto hydro lines. My clients have been there for 30 years. They're perfectly healthy. And they said, like, it's never bothered us. We love the fact that we have no neighbors behind us. There's green space and a walking trail.
You hit the nail on the head there. I have a client in Lakeview, and remember when they decommissioned the ones that go right through? So you have the big tower, but they literally back on to green space. They have no neighbors. So in their backyard, they got some good foliage anyways that blocks it. But if you're in their backyard looking up, you see the gray tower, right?
But that one's decommissioned, right?
It's decommissioned too. So yeah, it's even better that you're not that close. Interesting though, when it was active, it is pretty close that. So I'm curious.
Well, they never had to charge the phones. They go, my phone's on. I came home, my phone's at 100%. It's great.
Weird. My brain's getting bigger. I must be getting smarter. So for that regard, to me, you hit the nail on the head. Is like you do not have that nosy neighbor. You probably would also have, I would think, a deeper lot in general because they want to give you that distance. And there are positives to that, right?
There is.
Okay, so the other one was I like the busy streets, the throughway streets, and the corner lot. We can kind of lump that into one. Corner lot, again, you're maybe getting a lot of frontage, but you're either getting 8 feet of backyard and then a bunch of side yard, right?
Right. Yeah. So that just the way the house is situated on the lot, it's generally more towards the interior part. So
Hmm.
yeah, you have more because of setbacks. You have more front and side yard, very little backyard in a lot of cases, and
You might be backing right onto that house too. That is at
you might be close
the
to the
other
house.
side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it kind of depends on lifestyle, I think too. So if you let's say, and I have clients that were gardeners and they just love to garden and they wanted people to be able to enjoy their gardens and all the work that they put into it. So they loved the corner lot because they had gardens everywhere and it became just, a place in the neighborhood for, neighbors to walk by and enjoy. And then I've seen situations where it was a corner lot, and and it was a neighbor of mine wanted to put in a swimming pool, and he had a really hard time doing it because he had to put it in the side part of his yard, and he had to go through committee of adjustments and all kinds of meetings
Yeah. Yeah.
with neighbors, and to give him the approval, and it was just a really tough
That's a
go.
great point too. And
Yeah,
the other thing too is usually with a corner lot, you're intersecting at two streets, right? So sometimes you could be in these interior streets where maybe it's not as busy, so you don't have to factor that in. But sometimes it is those busier intersections,
right.
right, where you have two stop signs or maybe a light even.
Well,
And now, if you do have young kids or what have you, something to consider as well.
that's right. And speaking of, intersections, thinking about being at the end of a T intersection. So fine during the day, not a problem. At night, headlights are going to be coming right into your front room every time a car comes up to that stop sign. So it's just a little thing to consider.
And I feel like though we might get some pushback here because I know there's some people in the office that love corner lots, and I have clients that sometimes swear by the corner lots. And I think developers in sometimes can build these homes that maybe depending on the footprint, right?
Well, a lot of times there's more windows. So when they build a corner lot, instead of like the side of a house generally doesn't have a lot of windows in a subdivision because it's backing or siding onto another house. On a corner lot, there's generally more. So, you get a lot of natural light in corner lots, which can be a benefit. So,
for sure, and you have one less neighbor in a way
and you
too.
want, yeah, a little more
A
privacy.
little bit more privacy, a little more breathing room.
A little buffer.
You can stretch, move around.
Yeah.
Okay, and then let's talk about schools and green space in general. So I like to use a general rule of thumb, and I'm curious if you would agree on this, is when you back onto green space, so I'm saying you back onto a park, you have no nosy neighbor looking in. To me, that's an instant like 100K premium. That's my general rule. Now, obviously it depends where it is, how big it is, but like I feel like generally speaking, having that luxury equates to that value.
I think it depends. And I've seen more recently where more value is put into the home and the size of the home. And I find that with, like when I grew up, kids were outside playing in the backyard all the time. Now families are busier and kids are, I'd say, a little bit more programmed. Maybe they're in soccer, they're in baseball, they're in swimming, they're in something else.
They're in programs or they're at home on their iPads.
Right. So they're not making use of the backyard as much. I feel that the greens, I mean, it's beautiful to have, but I don't think everybody puts as much emphasis on it as they used to because of that reason.
Interesting take there, Gord. That is a good way of thinking. I've never thought that way. I still have clients right now that the upsizer in general they want to back onto that, and
it's beautiful to have.
It is,
and
yeah.
and it's especially if it's green space, not going to change, right?
And perspective too of thinking it in a different light. Okay, so then we talked about green space. Now schools. So I have a client that backs onto a school park, and they love it because they don't have to worry about anybody there after, call it 5 o'clock, really,
Right.
and on weekends, other than maybe kids playing, which is just noise in general, right? But you had a funny story about backing onto a school or by a school. They didn't like it because of the school buses and the traffic in the morning. So I think it's a good way of talking about.
Yeah, I've had both perspectives. Somebody lived across from a school, said, "Oh, it's great. I've got no neighbors across the street. Nobody's here on the weekends. I've got extra parking out for overflow. If I have a party on Saturday, hey, park in the school.
Yeah,
well, come on over.
Exactly.
Play road hockey there.
Don't
on
have
the weekend.
too many though, because you still got to take it out from the school parking lot. It's gonna get towed.
That's right. But then I've had the negatives are, well, it's hard to get out of the house at 8:30 because everyone's dropping off their kids in their school buses, and the recess bell goes at 10 o'clock when I'm on a Zoom meeting, and so there's,
and then you hear a scream from
Where's
3:30 to 4:30.
my favorite subject. But so
recess too.
Yeah,
Exactly.
so there's both sides of the coin and I think you just have to really look at it and understand that, and just decide what's more important for you. Like if you got kids that are going to go to that school, how easy would it be to say, hey guys, it's 8:29, you better get to school because it starts in 30 seconds or 60 seconds.
And I think that's what we're trying to show here too, is that there's these stigmas across the board, but not in every case is it necessarily a stigma. And what somebody might value as a pro could actually be a con. And understanding that and coming back to like, what does location mean to you?
Mm-hmm.
We can give our professional opinion and advise on all these things that creates maybe disruption from a resale value standpoint. But if you find the right buyer or the right individual, it may be something they actually do value, or this is a premium, but I don't see it that way. So now it is actually a con, right? And it's funny how it could go both ways.
That's right. And you mentioned a word, but, and our mentor, Claire, had an expression. So it's a butt house. What's a butt house, Claire? Well, it's a nice house, but it backs onto this, or it's beside that. So it's important to understand the ramifications if you do have a stigma attached to your house, in like how drastic or how concerning is the stigma. Exactly. And I think it's important to just like, you have to look at so many aspects, as we talked about, just drilling down, like, what's the rest of the neighborhood like? Is it a good school that you're backing onto? Are your kids going to go to it? Or you're not going to be able to enjoy it? Or, how's it going to affect you personally? And then, again, thinking 5, 10, whatever many years down the road when it's time for you to sell.
Yeah.
Like, those things aren't going to change.
And then let's talk about train tracks, because I think this could be two different subjects as well. Lauren Park is a good and a bad example at the same time, in that even the stuff that does back onto the train tracks, those are some big homes.
And super deep lots.
And they're super deep
300,
lots.
400.
They're very far away. You have a ton of foliage. You probably don't even know that train going through half the time. But obviously being maybe too close to a train track, in Port Credit, Mineola area, sometimes on the north and the south side of the tracks there, certain streets I'm not going to say because I know people that live on them and I don't want to speak negatively, but do you know what I mean? You're a little close, right? Mm-hmm. And that would be a negative, because you do hear that in your backyard. Now, it is the Go West line, so that one does run every half an hour, but at the same time, you have no neighbor looking in during that when it goes by. And you're not in a location where it's ding, 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 and you're like, holy cow, every half hour. That would really piss somebody off. The pro with that too, though, is you're probably in a location that gives you maybe walking distance to commute to where you need to go, right?
Yeah, to the Go
You can go
station.
to the Go station.
Yeah.
You work downtown. This is a luxury, right? You can walk there. So there is pros and cons with that as well.
I agree. And the same thing goes in Toronto. You could be close to a train track, and it could be the subway line. Again, you're close to the subway. There's a train track that runs through Summerhill and Rosedale.
Yep.
And, you're like, you're in Summerhill. It's Rosedale. Yeah. You're there. So
Lauren Park again.
Yeah, it's Lauren Park. So,
but even to your point with Toronto, it's a good example. Like sometimes when you're a little close to the Bloor line, right? And even though it's underground, you might feel a little bit of a rumbling in the house, and it's not crazy, and it eventually becomes like white noise. But that also is like a superior location too, in that you are close to you're on Bloor, so you're walking distance to every cafe, shop, what have you. You're walking distance.
You're on the subway line.
The subway line to get you anywhere you need to be, right? So some people may say, oh, this is, I hear it in my basement, but at the same time, it's like you're in Bloor West.
And I think it's important to just understand what you're getting into. So like, you remember in COVID, when we had 15-minute showing times? Yeah. You bring a client, okay, you got 15 minutes. You want to buy this house?
Home.
Yeah, you want to buy your forever home or not? Like, okay, 12 minutes, so let's go, guys.
My mask is too high, I can't see.
Yeah, so I think it's important. Like, we can book hour showings in most cases now.
Yep.
I think it's important if there's a house that you're really interested in, go there for the hour, experience it, see what it's like, open the windows and see how loud it is, close the windows and see how, like,
100%,
and understand what you're getting into before you make the decision, and then find out it's something that you're not prepared to live with. Or
if it's going to buy, in most cases it becomes like white noise. You just get used to it. But to your point too, that's a great example of open the windows, take your time, especially with condos. Like, you're usually higher up. But
you can still
you can still hear it.
Yeah.
And I always say, when the up goes by or the go train's guy, I'm like, wait, everybody, shh. And it goes by and they're like, I didn't hear anything. I'm like, perfect. There you go. Now you see it and hear it.
Yeah.
So that's good. And then what was the other thing I was going to say about Toronto in regards to train tracks, location?
View from
maybe
condos?
that's it. I think that would be it. Well, I was gonna make a joke too. Like if you're buying in the city, you're gonna hear sirens and everything as well. So that doesn't really apply to location because that at the end of the day, you got to be used to
Mhm.
noise. I think we've like what did we? Do you think I missed anything
I
right
think
now?
we're good. Yeah, no, I think we're good,
We got
Trevor.
busy streets, quiet streets, parks, walkability, corner, future developments. You want to talk about that? Maybe it's beside something that will be torn down one day and it maybe is a high-rise condo, or maybe it's a condo already that exists and they're going to eventually tear down and block that view.
I think it's important to understand. I can give you an example in the junction. We were talking about the junction. So there's a street that I've got clients on, and at the end of the street was an auto body shop. And not the greatest thing to be on your street. That's closed. Is one of these family businesses that was around forever, and now they're building a low-rise condo there. So, and there's, I believe, going to be a cafe or something on the main floor. So,
Isn't that one already built?
No,
Actually?
no,
But it's beside the one.
no. It's they
right
just
at
tore.
Junction-
They
yeah.
just tore the
Junction House or whatever it's called, right?
No. It's a different
Gotcha.
area. But to the junction houses, you could look at that as an example. Like that's brought the value of the area up
100%.
because there's stores and there's amenities in the area that weren't there before. So I think it's important to understand. And I would just say with condos, it's I think maybe more important to understand future development. So for example, you buy a condo and you've got a view of the lake.
You're that $1 million. Yeah, you're buying that $1 million view.
And and I've seen this happen. There's going to be a building built across the street from you. So it might not be next year or the year after, but let's say 5 years. Instead of looking at the lake, you're looking at 1106 in the building across the street.
That's happening right now in Port Credit. So on Ann Street, they have, Lakeshore in general has the restriction of you're not allowed to go, I think, higher than 3 stories, maybe 4. But I think of these municipalities, right, are maybe hurting for a little bit of money, and they're changing it. And they're trying to say it's like, well, we need more homes and we need to build more. And I don't know, between you and I, that pisses me off because at the end of the day, leave Lakeshore the way it is. I think Oakville did it the best in that downtown Oakville, you don't necessarily need to do the cobblestone, but it's restricted where you go through the town, you see all the shops, you see all the restaurants, you have this feel, you're still by the water.
Right.
And anything that's on the exterior side or the interior side that is high rise, you still have those views, right? But it doesn't implement Lakeshore.
Right.
Port Credit's supposedly, there's a lot of debate happening right now, and I think it's a slippery slope. But as soon as you do one, it's kind of
that's right. Well, we're not no frills. That's been debated for years and years.
Yeah, it's been empty.
Yeah.
And so now where the funeral home is that was there forever, there's a condo right behind it that essentially everybody that was on the 5th to 6th floor and up was guaranteed their views. They're getting close to at least approving 11, maybe they wanted 11 minimum. They're trying to get 17-story building. And imagine, to your point, you just spent $1 million to have that beautiful view and it's gone.
Yeah.
So understanding that is extremely
important. And sometimes that requires a lot of digging. Like you really have to go to the municipality. You have to look at the plan of subdivision. You have to try
and you can only do your due diligence to a certain point.
Because it changes.
Exactly. But at least you having that knowledge of making an educated, informed decision that there is the possibility one day versus here's this location where there's clearly no possibility because there's already something built and your view's there.
Yeah, it's static.
It's static. Okay, so Frick, I think we're cooking, Gord.
That was a good one. Yeah,
good at this.
A lot of good information there.
You want to lead off with your joke first?
Sure. Yeah, my good friend Tony, I've known since junior high, he's asked me to stop saying his name backwards. I said, why not?
I thought you were going to keep with the old beep theme from last week. I like it, Gord. I told my wife she needs to start embracing her mistakes. She gave me a hug. Kidding though, my wife loves me.
Great job, Trev.
Great job.
Great job.
See you, buddy.